What's up, airplane collectors? Welcome back to another model review. It's your host Ray. Today I'll be reviewing the NG model Delta Airlines Airbus A321NEO engine options. This model has been highly anticipated in the American market, and I am very excited to have this model. This model was released in June of 2022. This review will consist of a short discussion of the box and its features, and then a discussion and analysis of the model's features, and at the end of the video I'll give my personal opinion about what I think of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. Starting up with the box is the standard NG model Airbus A321 box at 14 centimeters lengthwise, 14 centimeters tall, and 4 centimeters wide. So I'll show you around the box, so take a moment to observe the box art. This model does include one of the collector reward plan cards, and it's one of these green ones. And here's the model itself. I'll give you guys a quick 360 so you can get a good look at the model. The fuselage length is 11.2 centimeters, the wingspan is 8.6 centimeters, and it's 3.1 centimeters tall from the ground to the top of the tail. So it's accurate to 1/400 scale, and it's relatively small. We'll start with the review at the front half of the aircraft. Here we can see the front portion of the fuselage. No complaints up here, lots of printed detail, all of which looks good and seems to align nicely. The cockpit windows look good, the nose shape looks fabulous as per usual, especially with this new introduction for the NG A320 family molds. It's still as good as before, so no complaints on that regard. The only issue that I have that has been noticed by their collectors is the Delta title here is a little bit too long lengthwise, or it's a little too stretched, if you will, or it's a little too short. It's just the wrong shape in hindsight, so just take that into account. That's really the only issue with this. I think it was this model, or it was the 757 that I also reviewed. Not sure exactly which one it was. As we move down the fuselage, you can see more details, all of which look really nice. And here's the rear section of the aircraft. Here is the vertical stabilizer. It looks really nice, no complaints there. The paint here is actually placed really nicely. It actually looks really good. Colors look accurate, placement looks good, no complaints on the vertical stabilizer. We move down the right side of the aircraft. I can say basically the same thing from the left side. Dang it, focus. I can say the same thing for the left side. Everything looks good. The only issue is with the Delta titles. Moving on to the wings have a lot of printed detail and a lot of paint detail as well. Looks really good overall. The only issue that's been noticed by their collectors is the printing of the emergency exit arrows. As far as I'm aware, they're not supposed to be this shape. They're supposed to be a little bit, or they're supposed to be brought out a little bit more outwards on the wing, from what I remember. I'm not 100% sure, but this is incorrect, unfortunately. Aside from that, everything else looks good. Lots of molded detail, which looks fabulous. The paint detail here looks good. You can kind of see a little bit of residue from production. It's that little liquid that pops up in the model sometimes. Here is the bottom of the wing. Not as much detail down here. Definitely no printed detail. And the molded detail down here looks adequate. That's not a complaint. It's just there really isn't that much to look at down here. Now for the Sharklets. The Sharklets on this model are decent. Here you can see that there's a little bit of a point here, as if this was more of a scimitar tip, which that's kind of odd. The Sharklet shape on these is normal, it's acceptable, but it isn't perfect. Like here, the bend from the almost vertical position here to the wing itself, it's a little bit too sharp. It needs to be a bit more gradual from what I've seen. And just the overall shape, I guess, or no, actually they look fine. The only issue is with the bend here. Here's the Sharklet on the right side. This looks pretty good. Only issue I see is this paint here that kind of either got leaked over or scratched off. I'm not sure what happened. And here's the inside of the left winglet. Sharklet. You can see the point I was talking about a bit more clearly. Transitioning to the rear of the aircraft again, here we can see the horizontal stabilizers. Lots of printed detail on them. Everything looks good. Lots of molded detail as well, which is a really nice touch. Looks pretty solid overall. The APU also looks really nice. There's even a hole for where the APU exhaust is. No complaints back here. Looks really good. Now for the engines of this model are decent. They're not the best, they're not the worst, and you'll see why I say that. You can kind of see the exhaust here is pointed a little bit upwards. That or the engine casing is kind of pointed downwards. I think it's the exhaust being pointed upwards and misaligned. So that was kind of odd to see. But printed detail on the engines themselves looks really good. I don't think the exhaust issue is on the right side. Let me check. Oh yeah, the exhaust issue is also on the right side, so it might be an issue with the engine casings now that I look at it. Either way, the printed detail on the engine casings looks really good. But the main issue with the engines that is more of a mold problem, which kind of sucks, is once you look at the fan blades, they look pretty normal at first, but for some reason there's like an inner ring there, that's definitely not supposed to be there. It's not visible. It's not visible on the real engine, so it's not accurate, and it's just too defined. I guess it's supposed to outline like what's behind the main fan blades, but I'm not really sure why that's there. But that's really the big issue with these Neo engines, if you will. External details include both antennas and Wi-Fi domes. There are 4 antennas on this aircraft, 3 of which are on the top of the fuselage. There's 1 in the front and 2 in the rear section of the aircraft, along with the Wi-Fi dome. Other collectors have noticed that this Wi-Fi dome is a little bit large or tall, and I kind of have to agree. It doesn't look exactly accurate, but it is a small difference. And here are the 2 antennas over here. There's a large antenna and a small antenna. No complaints on the placement or alignment or the shape of the antennas, just the Wi-Fi dome has that issue, but aside from that, it's placed nicely. The last antenna is on the bottom section of the aircraft, or it's on the bottom of the aircraft in the rear section, and it's right here. And I'll transition to the bottom straight away. Here we can see the bottom of the aircraft, all sorts of printed details which look really nice. No complaints down here. You can see the Delta title here, which is unfortunately cut off by the display stand hole, but that's expected with these kinds of models. Now moving on to the landing gear, and also before I start on landing gear, you can see the A321NEO printing right here. It looks really nice. The landing gear on this model is really solid. It looks really good, very nicely detailed, and best of all, on this one, the wheels roll very smoothly and nicely, unlike the other 2 models that I received, so that's also an added bonus. And here's a look at the front of the aircraft. Wow, okay, so engine clearance looks good, surprisingly. Wing flex looks nice. No complaints on the gear balance, and the cockpit window printing looks perfect. It's been a very long time since I've been able to say that about a model, so that's really good. And that concludes the review. Before I give my opinion and my recommendation, I'd also like to point out that these 2 A321s are also made by NG Model, but they were made before NG overhauled their A320 family mold and created the other family members of the A320 family. So these models are great, and I'm about to give my opinion on this one. It's also great. It's a really nice model. I noticed virtually no defects, I mean, except for the Delta titles, but that's barely noticeable, and honestly, I really, really like this model. So I absolutely recommend it to any other collector who can get their hands on it. It seems as though NG is going on the right track with these new A320 family molds, and I can't wait to see what else they produce next. So get yours while you can. It might sell out quickly, I don't know for sure. But I promise you, you will not regret your investment once you get one of these. Just beware, it might arrive broken. I have seen other models from NG arrive broken or with all sorts of defects, so just be careful. There is that risk. I think it's very low on this particular batch, so that's pretty nice. So that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have anything you'd like to say, drop that down below in the comment section. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Like, comment, and subscribe. Stay tuned for more airplane siren, and if I stop procrastinating, rocket content. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Stay tuned, and thanks for watching.